OK, let's get the ball rolling with a focus on Brendan Rodgers following his latest win in his second spell as Celtic manager. Paddy, I'll come to you first. Where did you stand on Rodgers' reappointment initially, and where do you stand now?
I think it takes something to come back and put yourself into the firing line the way he did. I don't think I would forget the manner in which he left, but I was also of the opinion that our board were really a big part to play in that as well. I still think that, you know, there's different ways in which you could do it, but to be honest, we've seen a bit of a backlash the way Ange left at the end of a treble winning season. I don't think it's going to be too different to the backlash if Rodgers was to give us to the end of the season. I think that Celtic were in a good position. I think we were very likely to go and win the league the season in which he left. No matter who came in, the system that we were playing, we were still pretty much far in front of the opposition that we had. It was Europe that was the big questions were coming. We look at the games in Europe, which we didn't really lay a glove when I think the game against Zenit. We didn't really do anything against them. And I think that's probably that point he just done. I've taken them as far as I can. And if a team in the Premier League is going to come and offer him X, Y and Z when it comes to his money, X, Y and Z when it comes to transfer funds, and they've only recently just won the Premier League as well, but they give him a deadline, I'm not surprised he left it the way he did. Coming back to Celtic is a massive, massive risk for his managerial career. I still think that, you know, it's still very early days in the trust side of things with the fans and Brendan Rodgers. But my God, what we are realising and what we're seeing again is how good a coach he really is. And I think that it's only going to get stronger, but I also think he really needs a board that I want to buy in with him. And that transfer window there is giving me a bit of a fright.
I think that's a really valid point. We've yet to see him being fully backed. You know, Celtic did spend in the summer, James. They spent about 18 million, but glaring holes at left back and centre forward. So we'll not cover that right now, but it's really apparent to all involved. And Rodgers had a wee dig at it, I think, in his press conference as well just the other day. Just to ask you a question, James, some fans, and I do stress some fans, blame Brendan Rodgers for 10 in a row or Celtic not getting 10 in a row. That can't be true, can it?
It's the board. You know, you look at the nonsense Rodgers was dealing with, and by the way, I wasn't absolutely red hot on him coming back, but once you've seen the candidates lined up, you went, that's the best candidate, 100%. But Rodgers left for his own reasons, you know, protect his own career over Celtic, you know, fine. But the conditions he was working under, I wouldn't like to work under, you know, because that's a risk to your reputation as well. So I take Paddy's point that, you know, that was not an enthusiastically backed window. You know, however things didn't work out, failure is failure, and we didn't get what we needed. And that's why we didn't win on Tuesday night at the end of the day. So, what was your question?
Can't remember. I'll go to Miff anyway. Miff, I'm reluctant to ask you anything following your Lubo comments, to be honest with you, but you're strong on your position in terms of Rodgers' exit and subsequent return. But what's your summary of that at the moment?
Still conflicted because you know, the way the summer panned out doesn't sit well with me from Ange leaving. You know, like Paddy makes an excellent point. There is no good time to leave, and the way that Ange's departure has been received shows that.
Yeah. I think Rodgers would maybe have got away with it if he'd stayed at the end of that season. I know you're saying it'd be the same because it was the same for Ange. I think it'd been a slightly warmer than leaving middle of the night. But
I take your point. I, when it comes to Celtic, I don't think you know how abroad you get these announcements halfway through the season where it goes, oh, the manager's not renewing his contract because he's going to AC Milan. He's like Napoli and he's going to AC Milan, and everybody's still like, oh, cheers, mate. That wouldn't happen.
And also at the end of that season when we've just wrapped up the 9th title and he's leaving the year, we go and do the 10.
Go and do the 10. So I take that. Conflicted for me because still, you know, regardless, for all the reasons that you've said around his own career, reputation, the way the board were handling all that, I still, you know, midnight flit, no for me.
Aye.
And that just is the way I feel about it. What I will say is, he has not been backed again, but I am glad it's him that's in the hot seat to coach that squad of players. Because even though he's not been backed, we're already seeing green shoots of him making certain players better.
Yeah,
I can't take that away from him. I'm not bitter in that sense.
other senses.
So just better in other ways.
Be better, not better.
Aye, exactly. So for me, still no absolutely delighted he's there, if I'm being perfectly honest, no. But it doesn't stop me supporting the team, doesn't stop me supporting him as the manager when he's there. And I'm not so, blinkered as that I can't see certain areas that are improving. And for me, it makes it all even more apparent, that we should all be on the board's case to back this guy as heavily as we can. Because if we want to do well in Europe, what he's shown is he is a top level manager, coach. Just back him.
Yeah.
Give him who he wants. Like we said, the tipping point's got to come where we actually put the horse before the cart rather than doing it the other way and say, right, we're actually got to go and try and do a push in Europe. Let's give the manager in pre-season or before then the players that he wants to go and do it. Just do it.
Yeah, and just to jump in that regard, in terms of the backing, the money's there. We were actually talking about it before Celtic announced their books last Monday night. We'd recorded prior, but the PR statement that came with it was an insult to the fans. Whoever's doing Celtic's PR, if it's external, bag them. If it's internal, get them trained better, because it was insulting, telling us it was to do with fair play and sustainability and all this stuff. Absolute nonsense. We've got the money to spend it, and you'll make more money. It's not good enough.
I've got a question on that, and it's nothing at all to do with the agenda, nothing, but we're going to speak about tonight, but you've reminded me, and it's timely. Why or who at Celtic has put a statement out the day we go and play Feyenoord, Tuesday afternoon, or Monday night was it, sorry, the night before? You're about to play Feyenoord without a left back, without a backup striker, without a goalie. You've not backed the manager, and somebody thinks this would be a great time to break the news. Somebody sat down and deliberately made that call. I don't know if it's worth debating now or not, but to your point, James, it's just poor planning, poor timing, poor execution. Why not hold off till Friday?
Or even, try and say you get a win on Tuesday night, get out Wednesday morning. So you get two options: get it out later in the week, or Wednesday morning if you've had a win when everybody will just forget about it and it'll go into ether kind of thing. It's clumsy. But this is part of the step change that Celtic are going to have to go through. That goes top to bottom. Much maligned for probably the right reasons, Don Mackay, but I get talking to one of the staff in it when I was in at Parkhead one day, and they said, he was just trying to change everything, and you've been there. Not everything, but a lot of things need changed, and this resistance, this old way of thinking has got to go. If we want to step up, then it's across the board, and if you're not able to step up, you can't be there.
It was almost as if, for all the issues that we kind of that surfaced at the end of that 10 in a row season under Lennon, it was almost as if they just done, do you know what, see all the rubbish we've brought in, or the rubbish we've still to get rid of, loan them out, get rid of them now, because we need a clean slate for this manager coming in, and it's still coming back to haunt us. Mm-hmm. We look at some of the players that we couldn't basically replace. I was speaking to you on the post-match, Tino, about our goalkeeper situation. We couldn't sign another goalkeeper because we had Scott Bain and Benji Seagreaves. We've still got them on the books. We can't get rid of them. And this is the mismanagement of this club. That is one example. But to not go into the season with a third left back or even a third right back and rely on the likes of Johnston and Taylor staying fit and rely on the likes of Ralston and Bernabe as your backups for a full season when we're trying to progress is crazy. Now, understandably, I get that we've had a lot of issues with our centre halves and we've had to sign people in an emergency state, as you look at obviously the Nat Phillips deal. I also think Lagerbielke's maybe in that bracket as well, to be honest. But ultimately, when we are sitting with that amount of money in the bank and we are paying X amount of money for a season ticket that went up this season as well, and we're paying X amount of money for a Champions League package, it's a slap in the face to release something like that last week.
I'm not paying for a Champions League package for that reason. They're not backing the manager, so I'm not backing that ticket.
Right. Fair enough.
You forgot as well, X amount for a pie.
Aye.
Yeah.
I think it's clear they need to bring back Don Mackay, and we'll do a special on that next week.
I just want to ask NDA, man.
Just want to ask something. Let's bring it back to the Rodgers topic. There's plenty in that though. Maybe we'll catch that in next week's show. But really poor PR, really poor announcement by Celtic in terms of those financials. Great figures, brilliant. Wrong timing, absolutely wrong timing. Miff, to go back to the Brendan Rodgers question though, there's an element of the sport, and I don't think you're quite in this bracket, but they take the I support the team but not the manager stance. James, we know a couple, Noel McGrath, Mick Kelly, probably. I don't know if you're in that bracket or not, Miff, but is that a feasible position to take? Surely you're backing all or nothing.
I think the danger you have these days is everybody wants to tell each other how to support Celtic. I think everybody's well entitled to support the team. James has just given an example there as to why wouldn't they buy the Champions League package, and would they sit here for a minute, say what you're doing? That's entirely up to him. Same way I can understand why people have that stance, but I think just it gets to the point where, I suppose the difference for me, and I'm being just 100% genuinely honest here, the difference for me is having the boys and having the boys invested in it. And you know, I've kind of made that commitment to them where I take them to the games, and you know, even getting to do what we did on Saturday. You know, that's my thing with them. And you know, you could possibly view it as petty if I decided to say, well, I'm just Rodgers is back, so I'm going to go to the games. Can I ask however, if I never had the boys, I might not have renewed, because that's how angry I was in the summer. Yeah.
Can I ask you just about the boys then? What age are you young lads?
11 and 6.
What's their take on Brendan Rodgers? Is he a hero? Is he top man? Is he
the 6-year-old is he's just happy to go. He doesn't really, you know, he was gutted when Ange left though, because he really liked Ange. My older son, let's just say he's a bit like me.
Because I told me to be.
The word rap was mentioned a few times.
On Saturday.
No. He's settled a bit, and again, it's just you remember what that was like. You turn up and you see the guys wearing the green and white hoops, and you just support them. It doesn't matter. I mean, when I was turning up, I was heralding Stuart Slater, Andy Payton,
Louis McCarthy, Liam Brady, all that periods.
I loved it. You know, I still thought we would go. You know, Pat McGinley was an excellent player for Celtic. I went every week thinking we'd win and hoping we'd catch Rangers, even though we were 15 points behind with 2 games to go. So you just have that optimism as a young Celtic fan, and I don't want to extinguish that out of them because of my perceived unhappiness with situations that have happened at the club. I just try to keep their focus and going and enjoying the games and stuff like that. So I suppose that always kind of pulls me back in a bit. The whole Rodgers, it'll never sit well with me. And I'm also still a wee bit heartbroken for Ange, and everybody just keeps telling me to get over it. I need to go over it.
You can't give that to Rodgers.
No. But at the same time, the only fact the fact Ange left is the fact Rodgers is here. That's what created that.
That's his fault.
But I will need. Time's a healer. It's better, but I'm still not there yet.
I'm just waiting on. I've just got this image in my head of the teacher phoning up and saying, "Your son keeps calling me a rat."
It could happen. It could happen. It could happen.
Paddy, back to the football stuff. So we're unbeaten after 6 league games, and that includes 3 massive away wins, particularly Pittodrie, Ibrox, and then Livingston. You know, traditionally, quite a difficult game. It's clear that he's doing something right. Miff says he's delighted. He'd really pleased that Rodgers is a guy that's managing this group of players. So is there a cut-off point where people say, okay, he's won those big games now, things have settled in, he's starting to get his injured players back, all right, we can back him again, and if so, what is that point? Does he need to go and win the league again? Does he need to win a cup? Or can we now just start to say, he's here and he's here to stay, at least for now? Aye. Can we buy in?
No, I think that's already happened. I think a lot of people seen the way we set ourselves up against Rangers at Ibrox. A game where a lot of supporters, including myself, were going to bite your hand off for a draw. To leave a game that effectively was built up by everyone that it was going to be a Rangers win, and to leave and just that swagger was there again. And then you actually take a wee bit of a step back and realise, hang on a minute, we just won the treble last year and we've lost 2 big players. It's injuries that are hampering this team at the moment. So I think that when you go and get a victory like that and you play well, it's not as if it was a grab and run type of thing. We done really well against them. We're now looking at these players coming back. I think we're going to really hit top form, probably for me, November into December, and what a time to do that as well. And we've got out the way some really big away games, as you've just said. So it's going to be let's put it all on to the performances at home now against these teams and see how far we can get ahead.
Yeah, and James, it's a great point. You can't discount the fact that he continues to play without, I'd say, 2 or 3 of his first choice centre halves. Real credit to Liam Scales, and again on Saturday he done really well, and that's all Liam Scales can do, continue to play well. But being real, he's our 5th or 6th choice centre half, and Rodgers has managed that situation. He continues to play good football, and it's getting better. St Johnson wasn't great, Kelly wasn't great, but he's picking up some good form, some enjoyable stuff, I'm sure, for you to watch there on Saturday, Miff. And when Carter Vickers comes back, maybe Marco Tilio, maybe Lewis Palma starts to hit the ground running, maybe Bernardo, Thiago Holm. There's loads to look forward to.
There's a lot we haven't seen. You know, Tilio played in a kind of bounce match friendly yesterday, so it's good to see him getting minutes. There's another Aussie kid in there as well that we've signed.
Yep.
But if you look back 12 months, you've got Starfelt and Carter Vickers, your centre halves there. However many games they played together, never lost a game together, all that stuff, or domestic, never lost a game together. And you've got Lagerbielke and Scales, both young lads, you know, Lagerbielke especially. Scales with a lot of pressure on his shoulders, much blind. You know, by myself, I just think he's got a level. I don't know if Celtic is it. In fact, I don't think it is Celtic. But the two of them have just met each other, and they're forming a partnership. You know, clean sheet there. You know, the weekend, and this is just Rodgers giving them basic instructions on what to do. A couple of slip ups in terms of, you know, stepping out and stuff like that for Hearts sending off. But overall, you can see Rodgers' influence on the players, and the guys who are coming back, they're now, I think most of them, bar Abada, they're on the training pitch, so they're getting Rodgers' influence. They're going to come in with all Rodgers' ideas, all the formation, all the where I need to be, and you know who I'm playing with, and all that kind of stuff. They're going to be loaded with that, so they're almost getting a pre-season, and you'll get that burst of energy when they all start to come in, start of October through to kind of probably end of October. By then, start of November, as Paddy's saying, that's the time we'll hit the ground running, and between November and February is when you win titles. So. Nice.
And you know, domestically at least, it's been so far so decent. But to your point, James, and to Paddy's point, it's only going to get better as you bring these players back. That's just natural. One thing I'd like to highlight, Paddy, and I think it's so important as well, when there's in-game decisions to be made, i.e. when your goalie gets sent off, he's the calmest man in the stadium. You know, he's got that trust in his own ability to make the right calls. And what I liked about Saturday in particular was that he didn't say, right, I'll need to shore things up and put on Hatate at that point, Iwata at that point, or anyone else defence minded. He just shuffles his pack and stays brave and says, we're continuing to play, we're now just going to go 4-3-2. Kyogo go high and wide, Maeda goes high and wide, and those two were excellent, by the way. And we'll get to Maeda soon and everything that comes with that. But he kept his aggressive approach and just thought, I'm not going to sit in on this 1-0 and just attract, you know, long balls and free kicks for the rest of the game. I'm going to just go for it in the way I know how to. And it was really impressive to see. It
was, and as I said in the post-match, he's done it before. We left Ibrox with a 3-2 victory, and it's that belief in himself, belief that his tactics will work against other teams, that is so pivotal to as a Celtic fans and what we're going to be watching. I think the big thing for me was, like you say, he went to the three in the middle, kept that the same, and went to the two up front. With the pace of Kyogo and the pace of Maeda, we narrowed in the way Livingston were approaching us. They weren't doing anything down the wings, so he almost just said, well, I'm going to block you off this way, but my players are fitter and faster than you. And that's why we kept control of the full game. It was clever, and Martindale did not have a clue what to do. And you've seen, as I said, the amount of mistakes he made with his substitutions. He tried to change from a 4 to a 3 at one point and bring one of his fullbacks into play, and it was just a mess from him, a total mess. So hopefully he is in line to replace Michael Beale, but we'll see.
Dreams do come true.
In fairness to Martindale, he kind of owned that at the end of the game.
Aye.
I thought he had to. He just said, well, I could have probably done a wee bit better, but I think what Rodgers did is he just negated their one man advantage, and it was really clever stuff. Let's take it to the end of the game then, and a really interesting point about the whole day at Livingston. Some would call it the perfect PR execution. I'm sure everybody's seen the video, but set the tone with some young rascal breaks out the crowd and makes a beeline for his heroes on the final whistle, and as he's trying to do so, some overly enthusiastic stewards rugby tackle him and take the young man to the ground. Rodgers, 10-15 yards away, spots this, makes a beeline for the young man, pushes off the mad stewards, puts his arm around the youngsters and parades them back to the adorned public. You could not have scripted it. Some think it might even have been scripted, but it was a big moment for Rodgers. Listen, it happened. My guy.
Oh, not having it?
No, that appeared, well, take it at face value. Take it at face value. It appeared a genuine concern. I think it was the way, it was quite awkward because the steward ended up falling on top of the boy. It looked really kind of heavy-handed. So, no, I think it was fair enough for Rodgers, actually. And again, I think it was because he was so close to it and he saw actually what happened. He's like, no, enough of that, lads.
One of his own, Muff. One of his own getting manhandled.
Exactly.
James,
I know how strongly he feels about us Celtic fans.
James, there's listen, only a cynic, I joked about it on Twitter, only a cynic would really think it's staged, but undoubtedly won him back some Celtic points, didn't it?
The classically trained Felix McBride, 7 years old, kind of thing.
Aye.
Did it? Aye, but it's not for that. I just don't think Rodgers is going, oh, I know what I'll do. Do you know what I mean? To try and win points. He's just went, that's how you odd. Like, if any of us were walking past you, what are you doing? And you take the wheel and put him back in the crowd kind of thing.
I think it was how it looked. I think it wasn't just a case he got huckled.
It was the guy landing top him. That's over the top.
I think there was just genuine concern. Yeah. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
Paddy, are you going to try and break the cordon against Motherwell this weekend? Are you going to make a beeline for the boys?
If I fell in the shoe, they would all be worried about him, never mind me. No, I think it's... I agree with Miff. I'm a bit like, I just got on with it. I was also a bit like, I loved Joe Hart's celebration in the tunnel, and then if you glance at the camera, well, you're like, oh Joe, you know that's on you, mate.
Do you know what? We're all getting mugged off, and I love it. I thought it was great.
I'm here for that.
Paddy, just as we start to close out this conversation in Brendan Rodgers, I suppose one kind of pointed question which Mike can answer any kind of concerns we all might still have. Has he done anything wrong since his return? Transfer window, we've spoken about, that's out with his control to an extent, but is there anything notable that he's made a call on that he could have done better? James, have you got something?
Don't play Dyson Maeda right wing. Play left wing or on the bench.
Against Feyenoord?
Yep, 100%.
Aye,
mistake.
He was a bit missing.
Yeah. And don't use the media to talk to the board. Talk to the board directly.
Maybe he's doing both.
I thought his comments about Europe could have been a little bit more expanded. Because I'm not saying that I wanted to go and win the Champions League this year, but I did, and we're not going to. So no. I generally think that he was a bit open and coming out and saying, I want to progress in Europe, I want to do a bit more in Europe. And considering what we've seen in the freak season a couple of years ago, I think as a support base, we're owed a bit more from the club. Instead of sitting in our hands, we really should be going and knocking on the door in European football. There's 3 competitions there. I'm not saying that we're going to do anything at the elite one. I think the Champions League is well at our grasp in terms of going on a run there. But the Europa League, this is the final season where you finish third that allows you to progress in that. I don't know if we're waiting on the new formats coming in next year, and maybe they are thinking we could do something in the Europa League over that amount of games and then a knockout situation instead of getting into the Champions League. I honestly, that sounds really, really downward for myself, but I just don't trust this board.
But if you go for third, you get fourth.
Yeah. I don't think you can say, do you know what, Europa suits us better, so let's target third. Or even, if it comes to it next season, we have to qualify for Champions League. Does it do us no harm to just fall at the final hurdle and fall into it? I just think Celtic have got to aim as high as you possibly can, and I think that's where Brendan Rodgers' head's at.
Yeah.
But whether the board backs that is a different question.
But they have got to, but they haven't. And they haven't over the last 13 years.
My gut feeling is that they're just saying, don't really need to try that hard this year, just kind of steady the ship, and then we go for it next year because there's much more money involved in it. Maybe. But that's such backward thinking,
Yeah. All to be discussed. Miff, as we move on from the Brendan Rodgers section for today, any final comments on this one?
He's not done much. Ultimately, he's judged by his results, and the St Johnstone and Kelly games aside, there's mitigating circumstances for that. He's still new in the door, even though he's been here before, and even though the team was successful the prior season, there's still that bedding in period. It is different tactics. There are some new players, and Paddy was absolutely spot on. 2 of the players missing are huge influences on the team in terms of Starfelt and Jota. So all those things considered, you have to be delighted with the start that we've made.
Yeah. Starfelt finished with the armband for Celtic against Barca there weekend. Yeah.
And Frank McAvenny says Jota's coming back in January, so it's all good, lads.
It's all good.
Now listen, it's been an interesting spell for Brendan Rodgers back. So far so good generally domestically. Work still to be done in Europe, and we'll see how that plays out over the next few weeks.